Hello, welcome to Campbell County Cooperative Extension Service. My name is Rhonda Rex, and today I'd like to talk to you about baking and baking for the fall. Fall's right around the corner. It's going to be a chill in the air, and so it's just kind of nice to have an evening of baking and just trying some new recipes. I have a recipe that I want to share with you today. It's called pumpkin apple muffins, and it comes to us from our Plated Up project from the University of Kentucky. And while I'm talking about that and showing you the different ingredients that goes in the recipe, I want to kind of challenge you and kind of get you to thinking, if you are not already thinking this way, of how you can make your baking products a little bit healthier, okay? So how can you have those yummy treats, those nice treats that you like, and how can you have it a little bit healthier, okay? So that's what we're going to kind of focus on today. For the pumpkin apple muffins, you will need 1 1/4 cups all-purpose flour, 1 1/4 cups whole wheat flour, 1 1/4 teaspoons baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 1/2 teaspoons ground cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon ground ginger, 1/2 teaspoon ground nutmeg, 1 1/4 cups honey, 2 large eggs, 1 1/2 cups fresh puree pumpkin, or you may use the can, 1/2 cup canola oil, 2 cups Granny Smith apples finely chopped. So I'm going to start out and just kind of show you how to mix. I'm going to mix in this bowl. I'm going to mix my dry ingredients, and in this bowl I'm going to mix my wet ingredients. So I'm going to go and put I'm going to use all-purpose flour. Okay, we're going to go ahead and just we're going to add some whole wheat flour. Okay, so I'm just going to add that to my all-purpose flour. And then I'm going to use a little bit of baking soda. I already have that measured out. I'm just going to add that to the dry mix. And again, I'm just going to try to get this mixed up as good as possible before we add our wet ingredients. Okay. A little bit of salt. And again, if you're worried about that in your diet, you know, you can kind of take a look at that recipe. But that just sort of helps with the baking process. Okay. And then we are going to add cinnamon, nutmeg, and ginger, okay? And I've just added it all into one little container just to make it easier and for time's sake. So we're gonna add that. So that's our dry ingredients. And we're just gonna kind of make sure that that's mixed up pretty well. Okay. And then we're going to move over, leave that right there for right now, and we're gonna move over to the wet ingredients, okay? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put in some honey. And I did spray my wet measuring container with a little bit of canola oil, okay, that spray. And that just kind of helps that honey come out of the container. It's not just stuck in there or whatever. So that helps that come out a little bit better, okay? So we're gonna get that all in there. And then it calls for a couple of eggs. And again, these recipes are tried, they're tested from the University of Kentucky. This is what works best. It is a good, healthy version, but I know a lot of times we might want to eliminate eggs, whole eggs, and put maybe egg whites or a egg substitute. So you can, again, baking is a science, it's such an art to it, so just try it for yourself at home, see what it turns out like. Okay? So we're just going to kind of mix this up as we go along. And then it calls for, the recipe does call for fresh pumpkin puree. And I have made this recipe with that using fresh pumpkin. It's great. Today, for time's sake, we are just going to use a canned pumpkin. We always like the quick and easy, and then around the holidays, maybe we might have a little bit more time to make it with fresh pumpkin, so you certainly can do that. And that's such a fun process, especially if you want to try it with your kids and show them how to do that. And if you need help with that, I'll give you a number at the end of the segment to let you know that we have some help, or we can help you with how to prepare from fresh pumpkin, okay? All right, so we're gonna put that in there. Again, just kind of be patient with me. Let me get this kind of stirred up there. We can get our egg in there really good and our wet before we get it over to our dry. Just kind of helps with the mixing process if we can do that, okay? And then we're going to use a little bit of canola oil today. In other recipes, if you were cutting back on, if your recipe called for butter or margarine, or a vegetable oil, you could kind of substitute and maybe use some canola oil. And then maybe you might want to think about using maybe applesauce. I have several recipes that call for applesauce. It makes a really good baked product. And then today we're using, as you can see, pumpkin. So lots of good ways that you can really make these sweet treats nice for the holidays, for the fall coming up. Nice treat for your coffee, your tea, big glass of milk. Okay. All right. So then now we're going to put in our Granny Smith apples, and like I said, I've used a couple of them. It calls for a couple of cups. Okay, so we're going to put that in, and again, we're just going to kind of help the mixing process along. I am going to put it in our mixer over here, but we're going to kind of help it along a little bit. It's always just nice to do that. That way you don't get big clumps and stuff. Okay. All right, so I'm going to kind of put that pedestal here and kind of get it, there we go, and then just kind of be patient with me as I pour this in. I'll try not to make a mess, but a lot of times we do when we're baking and cooking, and that's okay. Go back and clean it up, but that's the fun of cooking, especially baking. It's one of my favorite things to do is bake, and especially going into the fall weather, it's nice to bake and have fun with it. Okay, so we have it all in there, and again, I want that to get really good and mixed up at the bottom. So I'm going to just kind of, again, help it along. And then we're going to just kind of let this mix up. Let it mix up real good. And as you know, we're going to kind of help it out a little bit, get it all down in there. We don't want to mix it too much because a lot of times when you do that, you'll get a tunneling effect in your baked product, or you'll just over mix it and you don't want to make it real tough or get those holes or those tunnels in your product, okay? So we're going to turn that down. We'll give it one last shot there to get the bottom, and then we're going to turn it down, and then I think we might have it mixed up pretty well, but we'll see. And I'm going to take it off of there, bring it over here, and make sure that I got the bottom mixed up. Love using my mixer like that because, again, it takes a lot of the work out. If you do a lot of baking or whatever, especially around the holidays, you know that it's very trying on your legs and your back to stand and bake and mix and stuff. So, so that's really nice to have a little help there. Okay. Okay, and what we're going to do now, move some of these dishes over and just get them out of the way. And then I'm using a parchment type of muffin container. So I'm just going to pull that up out of the pan and show you. Because I like to have large muffins, and I know that that's not, we're trying to adapt and we're trying to be healthy today, but I like to use this because I think they make just nice muffins, especially if you've got an event to go to and you want them to look really pretty. I like to do that, and then what I would like to do, and I'm just going to use I'll try to use a spoon here just to make sure, but sometimes I will use a dry measure, maybe a fourth or a half a cup, and kind of dip it down in there, and that way it measures it out. But it's just a simple process, and I really fill it up pretty good bit. I do like the large muffins because, again, I think it looks nice, but just keep in mind we're also talking about being healthy, so keep in mind when you do this and you use the larger that it's gonna not be the same nutritional wise. Okay, so you may want to cut this in half when you eat it. Eat one half of it, save the rest for later. Okay, so that maybe will make you a couple muffins out of it, but they do turn out to be really nice. And I even sprayed my container, my muffin container here, the little tin I call it, but I sprayed it as well because I just don't want it to stick. I want it to come right out of there when I bake it. And then as you can tell, they do come out when they bake. I've got the finished product here in front of me, and when it does come out, it just comes up, it rises up, and it just makes a beautiful muffin. And I always like to make the larger ones because it just presents very well. And again, just remember, if you're watching your calories, you're watching your health, just kind of cut those in half and make a couple out of it, okay? If you want the recipe, please phone our office at 859-572-2600. That's the Campbell County Cooperative Extension Service. We do have a website that will show, and you can actually go to that website and find the recipe as well. It's called Plated Up Kentucky Proud. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.